Hi, I'm Steve Evers. I'm local. I'm an architect. I've lived in Natick all my life, and we've lived in this house almost 40 years. Um, we're leaving this house as it's a little bit too much work for us at our age, but we're passing it on to some people that will really take care of it. And I'll explain how it's protected and the kinds of improvements that we've made over the years. This land was originally 200 acres purchased from the Native Americans here in Natick under protest by John Elliott. He actually signed the back of the deed protesting the sale because it was Indians' impoverished positions that required them to sell off the land to the white settlers. Nathan Rice was somehow involved in the original 200 acres, and as I understand it, Robert Jennison, who built this house, was married to his daughter, Nathan Rice's daughter, and therefore this land probably came as a transaction in good faith of family. When we moved in, there was about 25 acres, 5 acres, which we'll show you, which used to be an open field. A series of dog kennels were here because they raised over 36 beagles. I think one of the oldest packs, if not the oldest pack of beagles in this country. The Pruneres, Henry and Mildred, were the people who lived here for 50 years before us. And they were very well known in Natick. We were contacted by their estate attorney, and he said, we really need somebody to take care of this property, and your name has come up. And so we'd like you to do so, but we cannot guarantee that we can sell you the house at this time. So some 15 years later, having been caretakers and done major improvements to the property, we were able to acquire it, and we've lived here for almost 40 years. The original front door to the house was a double set of doors, and the way we found that out was there was a dog shed, and there were two doors that were cut in half. So they must have rotted out, and they saved what they could and used them for the doors for a dog shed. It was out in the field. So this is a 1935 representation of the front door. The house was um, lived in by descendants of the same family, Robert Jennison, up until about 1900. That's what we understand. It then fell into disrepair. It was vacant for about 20 years, and somebody from Boston came out here and decided that they were going to restore it, and it was the beginning of the preservation movement in the United States, um, and he wanted to take advantage of buying the house before it was destroyed. Unfortunately, he went belly up in the stock market, and then came the Pruneres. The Pruneres were also looking for a house in the country. They came out, they purchased it and completed the restoration. What I've added since we moved in was a wood roof, was a box gutter instead of a regular shaped gutter. We did so by turning a regular gutter backwards, and we also did box downspouts by putting a galvanized pipe inside an enclosure, a cedar enclosure. The pattern of the shingle of the clapboards on the outside, these were all replaced probably in the 1930s. We have only one photograph of the house, and we found that there were two additions way back that have been removed. One was right on the front corner of the house. It was probably a tool shed because there was a carriage house right on the edge of the hill behind us. There was another addition, which is probably a summer kitchen off the back of the house, similar to what we've done recently by putting a modern addition on. As I said before, the house is leaning, and the reason it's leaning is this was a hard pan dirt floor for the kitchen up until the 1930s restoration. The same with the nursery room to the rear of me. So those two rooms were dirt floors because this is where the cooking was always done. And I guess the way I understand it, women's skirts were so long, it was a very dangerous place to be with hot coals. If anybody did catch fire on their garments, they could snuff it out on the dirt floor quicker than they could let anything burn. This is a Rumford fireplace behind it, and we had a rebuild of the chimney. The guy who did said that the original walk-in fireplaces are still behind the Rumfords. The Rumfords came in the late 1700s, and the walk-in fireplaces were appropriate at the time the house was built in 1738. So Rumford's design is to have a very shallow hearth and to have the fire radiate to the objects and the people in the room. And all of the fireplaces in the house have been converted to Rumford. Only two of the fireplaces are in working order. because the flues were in such poor shape when we rebuilt the chimney, and the hearths all sloped the wrong way. So building a fire in any one of the other fireplaces would be a danger to the house itself. This is a beehive oven. It's got that beehive shape on the inside, and there is a large stone where the coals are put to heat the stone to the desired temperature for baking. When we moved in, the family who lived here had no living relatives, so most of the antiques that were in the house were ours to keep. And we've actually embraced that concept of handing down the antiques with the house, and are leaving quite a number of things from the house for the future buyers. Things like a china cabinet that is almost impossible to move. We have some other wardrobe cabinets that we're leaving here as well, because they are like fixtures in the house. In the 30s renovation, when a soil pipe was put in for bathrooms on the second floor, they cleverly disguised it as part of a bookcase. So we've all worked to preserve the original integrity of the house, and yes, we're allowing modern advances in plumbing and the like, and electricity for the house. The house is completely up to code at this point. The paneling in the house is original. Some of the wood is telltale. For example, this one piece of featherboard, which is a style of paneling, is wide enough to have been having to pay the king's ransom on keeping that wood for building your own house in the colonies. We have two types of paneling. We have the featherboard, which is vertical on the inside underneath beams to give it additional gravity weight, and on the outside walls where there's knee bracing in the walls that basically hold the corner posts up, it's run horizontally. So the featherboard is used both internally and externally on the walls. The beadboard, very unusually, it's pieces that are this wide at the top and this wide at the bottom. So they were probably custom made all the way through. There was an opening here. You can tell that this was basically just boarded up. So this came from the kitchen into the living area, and this was probably the original door to the nursery. The two doors on this level are probably the only original doors and hardware to the house, but they're still intact, and we have one additional door in the kitchen that we reused for a closet. All right, this paneling in this room, there's 4 major rooms to the house. Again, featherboard paneling right underneath the beam for support, and a Rumford fireplace with a Rumford, with a modified paneling when that was changed. The little pantry over here was added in the 1930s. What's nice about this house has original early 1800s furnishings, and most of them are going to stay with the house. This whole room, in fact, we want to leave intact. The clock was originally a wooden geared clock. It has been electrified since, and the gears are all gone except for one token gear that's inside the cabinet. This is the only, this wall and the equal wall in the bedroom to the other chamber are original plaster walls. You can feel it from the way it's roughly plastered. And it has, we opened up the walls for plumbing and found the original split wood, split log lath. So other than these 2 walls, all the other is all 1930s modernized plaster. It's said that his son, Lot Jennison, may have done the paneling in this room. It's different in style, it's more Georgian, as you can see this mantelpiece, but it's consistent in the use of paneling throughout the entire wall as opposed to the featherboard that we saw downstairs. But this paneling is in beautiful shape. Again, we call this the poster bedroom because there's a poster bed in it. Again, plaster wall is this one, and we found out about it when we had to put new plumbing in the bathroom behind it. So those are the 4 big chambers where most preservation restrictions are in place on the interior of the house as well as the exterior. So we don't do changes in these areas, and nobody in the future will ever be able to. But you can update bathrooms, you can update kitchens, and you can make a modest addition to the house, which we've done. The rule that Historic New England has is 50% of a floor plate you can build onto the side of the house or to the rear of the house. And we are at that exact number, 600 square feet. But the next homeowners and future homeowners will all have the responsibility of caring for this house. And that's what the stewardship program for preservation restrictions inside and out is all about. So thank you for the time you're taking to watch this, and hopefully I taught you a little bit about some of Natick's history. Thanks.